Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth. I'm your host, the Game Master, and today we're talking about Superman. But before we get into that, smash that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and leave us a comment. That helps us out with the YouTube algorithm, but also we love to hear from you guys. We've got an awesome community here, and it's all thanks to you. So thank you so much for being here. So, having said all that, let's dive in. The prologue of today's tale begins with Lex Luthor giving a TED Talk. Covering this event is Clark Kent from the Daily Planet. As Lex talks, Clark notices that Lex isn't making any jokes. Luthor loves to be in the spotlight and be adored by the masses, so sometimes his jokes are for them. But more often, Luthor hates the general public and sees himself as superior to anyone who's less intelligent. So, to entertain himself, Lex makes subtle puns here and there. But not today, not this Lex. He says that his company is teaming with the 2045 Initiative, a nonprofit organization that has developed a community of researchers in the field of life extension, focusing on combining brain emulation and robotics. It was founded by a Russian entrepreneur named Dmitry Itskov, with the help of Russian specialists in the field of neural interfaces, robotics, and artificial organs. Their main goal is to create technologies enabling the transfer of an individual's personality into a quote unquote more advanced non biological carrier, thus extending life to the point of immortality. Lex Luthor then goes on to say that LexCorp has taken that ball and ran with it. And as of today, Lex Luthor has conquered death itself. He tells the audience that the man they've been listening to this whole time is an avatar, and the mind of Lex Luthor has already been transferred into this robotic body, a sort of mechanical clone with all of the memories of Lex Luthor. And then to demonstrate the advantages of this new body, Lex then lifts a tremendous amount of weight. He announces that starting in a few hours, pre orders will go up on the LexCorp website. The price is astronomical, of course. So, as of right now, it would appear to most people that death is now only for the poor. Which brings us to the main plot of today's tale. A few hours later, Clark Kent is sitting at his desk at the Daily Planet. On a big screen in the main room there, Luthor is on the WGBS 12 o'clock news being interviewed by Cat Grant. Cat talks about playing God and questions the ethics of immortality. Luthor then talks about Wonder Woman and how her island is surrounded by something called the mists of eternal youth. So the Amazons have been immortal since the days of the Roman Empire, and the world seems to accept that. He says that not only that, but the Amazons have invited various supers to their shores over the years, and they became immortal as well. Always jealous of the superhero community, Lex Luthor frames this as the supers hoarding immortality all to themselves. As he speaks, Clark listens. Clark thinks about the Superman robots and the similarities between what he did when he built those duplicates of himself. And how does that compare to what Luthor is doing? Clark even goes so far as to wonder if Luthor stole that technology from the Fortress of Solitude, and if all of these new robots are actually pirated Superman robots in disguise. He also thinks about the recent citywide budget cuts and how LexCorp is contracted through the police to contain the most dangerous supervillains now, and how Luthor has Metallo in his possession. And Metallo also seems a lot like these new avatars of Luthor's. Jimmy Olsen is sitting on the corner of Clark Kent's desk, listening as well, fidgeting with his camera. Jimmy says, "Do you think Lex could give me Lucy back?" Clark turns and looks at Jimmy as if wondering if he heard him right. "What do you mean, Jim?" Jimmy looks down, feeling vulnerable. "I mean, maybe Lex could copy Lucy's mind, and make a Lucy avatar." Clark pushes the button of his pen in and out as he thinks about the best way to approach this subject. "It wouldn't really be Lucy, Jim. It would be a sort of clone." Jimmy looks confused. Clark continues. "Luthor isn't taking what is inside of a person and moving it into a new body. What Luthor is doing is more like a snapshot of them. It wouldn't be the real Lucy." Jimmy furrows his brow, and he replies, "Yeah, but maybe her recent memories could be deleted and, she'd love me again, like in the good old days." Clark's expression is sympathetic. "I get it. I really do." He glances over at Lois, then back to Jimmy. "But Jim, you didn't love Lucy just for her looks, right?" And Jimmy agrees. Clark goes on. "And you didn't love her for just a checklist of her likes or a record of where she's been. You loved Lucy for her heart, right? Her soul." Jimmy listens. Clark continues. "The Avatar won't have that. I'm sure Lex is going to be very good at making you think that it does, but Lucy's soul is still in Lucy. And even if the Avatar truly is sentient, it would be its own person then. And if that's the case, Lex would be forcing this new being to sort of pretend she's Lucy." Jimmy sinks as Clark conveys the concept. Clark tells Jimmy that he knows that he's hurting, but he doesn't think this is the answer. Jimmy nods and says he doesn't know where he'd come up with that kind of cash anyways. Speaking of which, Cat Grant's voice is still coming from the large screen, now saying that the pre-orders for the LexCorp avatars have sold out. It seems that many of the richest men in the world have already signed up for what they believe is immortality. Clark tells Jimmy that it's lunchtime and asks if he wants to go grab a bite to eat. Clark says they could go eat at Big Belly Burger, and Clark offers to pay, but Jimmy says he's not hungry. Clark nods and tells Jimmy that if he wants to talk, he's always here. Jimmy thanks him, then wanders off. So Clark leaves on his lunch break, but instead of eating, he changes into his Superman uniform, then it's up, and away. He flies to Gotham City to visit his old friend, Bruce Wayne. Clark flies into the Batcave where Bruce is upgrading the Batcomputer. He asks Batman if he saw the news, and Batman says, "Uh-huh." Clark asks him what his thoughts are, and Bruce gets out from under the Batcomputer, stands up, and says this whole thing reminds him of the Hardak case, where a man named Carl Rossum lost a loved one. So he made a replicant of her. Superman nods and says Jimmy is in a similar situation. Batman narrows his eyes and says that Olsen needs to man up. Superman says he understands Jimmy's loss, and Batman says he knows a thing or two about loss himself. Then he shifts his focus and says, "I assume you're here because you'd like me to sign up for Project Avatar?" Superman compliments Batman's deductive reasoning, and Batman says he already packed. A short while later, Bruce Wayne arrives at LexCorp. Luthor greets him, and Bruce notices Lex is acting strangely. He seems more cold than usual. Bruce is then taken to an area to prepare for the procedure, where he changes into his Batman costume and then crawls into the ventilation system. Batman makes his way to the room where the avatars are, and to his surprise, the avatars are slightly upgraded Brainiac Skelebots, coated in Metallo's synthetic skin. What is equally alarming is these avatars do not have blank minds at all. They are all running the Brainiac operating system. So every single avatar is just Brainiac, using the knowledge it harvested using the encephalo beam. And that includes Lex Luthor. The Brainiacs detect Batman and the ventilation system and attack. So Batman substitutes an Omni gadget for spirit travel self-linked. That allows him to pass through walls and other solid objects like a ghost. By doing this, the robots' attack passes harmlessly through Batman, and the Dark Knight drops through the floors of the LexCorp building into the sewers below. Once he's outside of LexCorp's signal jamming technology, he activates a signal akin to Jimmy Olsen's old signal watch, and Superman enters, attacking the Skelebots. The fight spills out onto the streets of Metropolis in front of the LexCorp building, and Superman whistles. Krypto the Superdog shows up, and like every life form from the planet Krypton, the infamous Superdog has super intelligence, and he's a good boy. So using super speed, Krypto grabs innocent bystanders by the collar, etc., and moves them all out of harm's way, while the Man of Steel fights these men of steel. Unfortunately, Brainiac changes tactics. Plan A was to pull an invasion of the Body Snatchers, where the world's most powerful people would be secretly replaced with Brainiacs. Plan B involves mind control and hostages. Because, like we said previously, everyone has these new LexCorp cell phones now, which each one comes with Brainiac's encephalo beam technology and have been draining the knowledge out of the user's brains. But now we see them hack the user's brains, turning the citizens of Metropolis into a zombie-like horde who all attack Superman. And of course, Superman can't fight back without harming innocent bystanders. So for the moment, he falls back. Which brings us to the epilogue of this one. Superman, Batman, and Krypto regroup at the Batcave, where Krypto sniffs Ace the Bat-Hound, and Ace growls back. So Krypto just lays down and minds his manners. Superman asks Batman if he has any ideas on how to deal with the Brainiac operating system. Superman has superintelligence, but Brainiac has stolen the knowledge from countless alien worlds, sort of like the Borg from Star Trek. So Brainiac's gear is even more high-tech than stuff from Krypton is. Batman says he can think of at least one being who might be able to help them. So Bruce subs another Omni gadget for dimension travel, and the world's finest head to the antimatter universe of Quard, which seems like a good place to stop for today. We enjoyed playing this one. As always, we hope you enjoyed hearing about it. If so, we'd love it if you took just a brief moment of your time to smash that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and leave us a comment. And from all of us here at the longest running superhero role-playing game on Earth, we hope you have a good one, and we'll catch you in the next adventure. Bye.